there, SBD family. Welcome to another episode of the Strong by Design podcast. I am Joe Miller, your host today, and I am psyched out of my mind to have our guest, Superman, aka Matt Miller, my perfect gift from God, my amazing husband, join us for today's episode. Matt, thank you so much for joining in.
Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here, be able to talk about this, and hopefully help some people who are looking at going through this donation process.
I really appreciate it, Matt. I know you're taking time out of your busy day of crime fighting to help as many people as possible. But again, that's what Superman does. Before we go any further, I want to thank everybody for taking time to listening to today's episode. We hope and pray that you are blessed beyond measure by our special guest and his incredible testimony. We greatly appreciate your support and would be honored if you'd like, share, and subscribe to the Strong by Design podcast. Please give us a 5-star review. It goes a long way into helping as many people as possible. Now, on to today's episode. Who is Matt Miller, the man, the myth, the legend? Matt, could you please share with our listeners a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So in my day job, I am a data analyst. I work in project management. Really, I do a lot of manipulating data information, but that's something that I did when I was a kid and just grew up and the standard, computer person, if you will, and I really liked science fiction and fantasy and all of those sort of things. But somewhere along the line, I also got really interested in the martial arts, and so that's something that drove a lot of my life. And I started in Tiger Claw Kung Fu, and then later, after my Kung Fu instructor moved, I had to go on hiatus for a little while, and then an old friend had come back from the Marine Corps, started his own martial arts school, and I got involved in Changmuquan Taekwondo. It's a traditional style of Taekwondo, and from there, the rest is sort of history from that standpoint. I just I was set on that path. So got my black belt in Taekwondo and continued training in other styles. I started in a stand-up jiu-jitsu, Ishinai, did some Brazilian jiu-jitsu, did Bagua, which is another style of Kung Fu. It's all based around circles, and started in ICS, which is Israeli Combat System. Kind of like Krav Maga, except Krav Maga is copywritten here in the United States. And this was from some folks that came over from the Israeli military and set up shop and started training people. So really, really love that. And then eventually I decided that I needed something to supplement that, to get a little bit stronger, especially since you and we were going through this process of learning more and more things together about fitness as you were going through your powerlifting and later strongman. And I was trying to keep up with you and still do the martial arts too. Impossible to keep up with you, that's for sure. But ended up getting my USAW Olympic lifting certification so I could supplement that martial arts, and found out that I really liked lifting. So as it turns out, not only do I love computer programming, but I love programming fitness as well. So not just building workouts, but then plugging them all the right pieces in the right ways to do a good solid program for whatever the desire is. It's really just fun. So we own Miller Time Fitness together, and we also run livefit.net, which is a fitness and wellness website. My hope is that for this episode to be able to take a look at somebody who really loves fitness, who really tries to stay in shape and lift, and who's going through that kidney donation process. What does that look like? And I've seen people ask that out on Quora and other places online. So how do you come back from that? What does it look like, and what can you do? Not everybody is lifting the things that we're trying to lift, or do the skills like CrossFit and things like that, different kinds of functional fitness. So it might be different. Your recovery might be different if you're not trying to run big races and do martial arts, which is kind of tricky after a kidney donation anyway, and lift heavy weights. That recovery looks different than somebody who is.
Wonderful. Well, for you folks out there, I just want you to know with all that training in many different styles of martial arts, he looks so sweet, sounds so sweet, and he is. Thank goodness, because he is a deadly weapon. I wanted to share a little bit with our listeners about how we met, just a quick little snapshot about that. It was our faith in God and our love of martial arts that really brought us together. We met while back in college at Towson University at a Bible study for Campus Crusade for Christ. We connected instantly. We actually got food later that evening after the study with my identical twin sister and some friends, and we talked for hours and had amazing conversation. It was incredible. And it was starting to get a little late, and Matt, the gentleman that he has always been, offered to drive me back to my dorm so I didn't have to walk back alone in the dark. And he drove me back, and we're standing outside my dorm, and we're talking, having a great time, when out of nowhere, he starts standing like a flamingo. He's 6 feet tall, and standing on one leg, he grabs his other leg, lifts it up above his head, and wraps his foot behind his head, and continues to engage in deep conversation with me. And I remember thinking, this is one of the wildest things I have ever seen. Also, very different to do while talking to somebody. And I just remember thinking, wow, he definitely is the one, and I can't wait to marry him someday. And that was the first day we met.
Thank goodness you had those thoughts too.
Oh, I couldn't help it. It was undeniable. And then martial arts continued to play a big role in our relationship. We were friends at that point. But then, remember our first date? Matt asked me out and had me come over to his apartment, and he made this unbelievable dinner. He really impressed me with his cooking skills, one of his many skills that I absolutely love. And he made filet mignon, garlic mashed potatoes, French cut green beans with slivered almonds. The meal was delicious. And again, more conversation continued. But remember what happened with your roommate later that night?
Yeah, my roommate came in partway through that, and he said, I heard all this grunting and panting out here. What's going on? And he found us on our knuckles doing knuckle push-ups in the middle of the living room. And he just looked, and he shook his head, turned around, and walked away. And he said, yeah, I should have known.
That was amazing. That was the perfect first date. Nothing like knuckle push-ups to really get close to somebody.
Amen.
And then I loved how Matt, who had been training in Taekwondo and I had been training in Shotokan Karate, he taught me how to throw him over my shoulder. He's twice my size, and he told me that he could teach me. And I remember thinking, you really think I can do this? And he said, oh yeah, it's all about technique. And Matt is a gifted teacher. And he taught me everything I needed to know to be able to throw him effortlessly over my shoulder. And we did this, I think the first time was outside of the student union at Towson. Is that right?
Yeah, we had all these people going back and forth. It was the middle of the day, so students everywhere just walking around, and Joe throwing me over her left shoulder and over my right shoulder, just practicing. And I kept hitting the ground. I needed the practice hitting the ground anyway. And one time she tosses me and she goes, hey, don't just go with it. And I said, no, as I'm like coughing on the ground. If it felt like I was going with it, it's because you just got it perfect. And then we went on to do that as a party trick at family events. Hey, can Joe throw you? Sure, let's just find a clear area.
Poor Matt. He became the family rag doll. He taught me that, and that was so much fun. And we really enjoyed a lot of our relationship. Well, all of our relationship has been a very active relationship with martial arts, weightlifting, sports, all kinds of stuff. Now, as a part of showing what life was like before kidney donation, could you share a little bit about like what life looked like kind of leading up to the donation? Obviously, I was mentioning we were doing all the martial arts and the lifting and everything, but tell me what your physical health was, your physical life was like before donation.
Very, very active. Like you said, we went through a whole process of sort of learning things together, and of course, as you were going through winning powerlifting competitions and winning strongman competitions and things, I was trying to sort of keep up with you. So trying to learn these same things. And we just consumed all of that kind of information. So a lot of discussions, a lot of practice, martial arts, CrossFit, trail runs, obstacle courses, and of course, one of the really nice things is that as you were and still are, a coach, personal trainer, sports performance specialist, that gave us an excuse to get a lot of equipment for the house, and so a lot of our together time was working out. So let's go outside and get a workout in. Let's go for a run and then come back, and just so much was centered around just being very physical, lifting weight, and learning new movements.
So obviously you were going into this surgery very, very healthy. Now, what was going on in your life leading up to it? What were some of the big life events?
Well, when this happens, I think we'll talk about it later, but when somebody is having kidney issues, it's really something that goes on for a long time. So you're waiting for this point where, okay, you hit the spot where now you need they need a kidney. And through all that process, there were a lot of things happening. The biggest overarching thing, though, was your sister Jess's struggle with cancer and her fight, and that was huge. I mean, I feel like we were very involved in that, and you especially, and of course watching her. You don't see a lot of people who say, "Oh yeah, I have breast cancer, but we call it blessed cancer, and I'm using it to help people." And that's something that was going on, but also that really informed my mindset about going through difficult things and how you respond to them, and how you deal with recovering from difficult things too. I say, if she was able to go through that and have a smile on her face and laugh with doctors, then I am darn certain going to try to do the same thing. And I have to say, you also, of course, went through this very difficult surgery of the prophylactic double mastectomy. And so having a wife who is dealing with her sister's struggles and then going through this surgery, and you and Jess had that same sort of mindset of we're gonna go through something and we're gonna smile through it, and we're gonna make the people around us laugh, and we're going to fight all the way. And so I had double. You guys were double trouble, and I had double inspiration.
Oh, that's so sweet. Thank you, Matt. Now, those were some things that you used to draw on some inspiration or wisdom, but you also had your own wisdom coming from your own life experiences specific to you, such as some major surgeries. You had major reconstructive ankle surgery only 3 months after my preventative double mastectomy. That was quite a year. And then a few years later, before the kidney donation, you also had major shoulder surgery. And with that shoulder surgery, didn't they say that was one of the worst severity of injuries that they had ever seen?
Well, first the ankle surgery yeah, that was huge, and that was something that you learn lessons from everything that you go through. And you're right, when I think about those times, that those surgeries are in there, and but they're so superseded by the other stuff. But when I went through the ankle surgery, that recovery, come to find out, I really could have pushed harder to recover. And of course, you always are listening to what the doctors are saying. You want to go through physical therapy and listen to what they're doing. I'm not saying that it's a matter of going beyond what the doctors are saying, but taking ownership a little bit more. I wish I had asked more questions for that one. Because when I got to physical therapy, the therapist said, oh, you could have been stretching this and putting some weight on it. And it's this physical therapy is going to be more painful to start with because of that. And I didn't realize that I could have already been manipulating it some. So yes, when I got to shoulder surgery, you go in. As you're going in, the surgeon says, okay, you're going to be in a sling for 1 to 2 weeks, and we'll start you going into PT. And then when you come out, and he says, I'm really sorry, you're going to be in that sling for 6 to 8 weeks. This is the grade. We haven't seen that except in textbooks. I didn't really think that was a real thing. Wow, really? Okay. So he had to do a lot more repair than even he was expecting, and that ended up being a very could have been an overwhelming process. But then with your help, we were able to figure out things, because I said, okay, well, this is an extremity. I knew what happened last time. Let me not lose any fitness if I can help it. So it's my shoulders. So we go through a certain period where it hurt a lot, and we had to ice it and all that. But once I got out of that, it was, okay, I can work my core. I can do air squats. I can put a strap and do deadlifts with a strap instead of gripping it. We bought a safety squat bar so that I could hold the bar in place by holding it in front, because it takes a long time to get in the back, to get that flexibility back. So we found ways to modify to keep the fitness moving forward and keep it up.
That's incredible. That kind of reminds me of the UCLA famous basketball coach, John Wooden, who said, don't let what you can't do keep you from doing what you can. And that is something that you have been the epitome of through many surgeries, many tragic life events, hard things where there were limitations presented along the way, but you always found a way to get something done, no matter what. And I have enjoyed seeing you conquer all these things and not let it hold you back.
Well, I have to say it helps a lot to have someone as knowledgeable as you by my side, helping me figure out all of these things. So that would not be happening otherwise.
Okay, Matt is so sweet. I want you guys to know I am not paying him to say this stuff. He just showers the praise on me like nothing I have ever known. So thank you, Matt. You're very sweet, but he definitely has that in his core already. But thank you. So people must be wondering what happened that even led to a donation even being a thing. Your sister Erica, what happened to her? And tell me about the process that led up to you donating.
Sure. So my sister Erica was seeing signs that she felt like were worrying for many years. And this is something where I'm going to throw out a caution to anybody. Go with your gut. If you think something's wrong, get it checked out. If you still think something's wrong and they say it's not, go get a second opinion. Go with your gut. So she went in over the course of about 5 years, each year, with symptoms that she was worried about. And our doctor at the time kept saying, no, this is fine. You're okay. Nothing's wrong. Finally, she did go to a specialist, and they said, your kidneys are failing. Wow, really? At the time, she was in her mid-20s. And we certainly didn't think that was normal. I mean, why were your kidneys failing? It's not like they could specifically point at anything. And we have our guesses, but even today, we don't know what caused that failure. So when that happens, your numbers decline. So it's not like they fail overnight. So there's a whole process of trying to work with the doctors, trying to do medications, change your diet. Exercise sometimes can slow things down, but when you have this process of your kidneys just kind of collapsing, it's not something that you can normally stop. It's something that you have to sort of prepare for. So we knew for many years that at some point she was going to need a kidney donation, or she was going to end up on dialysis, which we didn't want, obviously. And that's unfortunate, but at least there are machines to do that. Dialysis is a machine that you run your blood through, and it filters your blood. So your kidneys normally filter toxins from your blood, and they create urine, and you expel it. But as your kidneys fail, they're not able to do that as well, and so you have buildup of toxins in your blood that you're supposed to get rid of. So yeah, that we still don't know exactly what caused it, but it was a long process.
Can you share with our listeners a little bit about the testing process that led to you volunteering to donate?
Sure. Yeah, that's it's a long process. There's a lot of stuff that goes on. They actually weed out a lot of people just through forms and paperwork. And after that, then you have to step by step by step, and you return over and over again. There's a whole team that works with you on this transplant. And I think we started off with the paperwork. I went and got blood work. 14 vials of blood. I was wondering if they were going to leave me any. Not something I'm ever excited about. But we did 14 vials of blood, and then we do kidney volume tests. So you take home a bucket, and you basically pee in that. So for a set period of time, and they test that. There was an ultrasound of my bladder. There was a contrast scan where they put dye in, and they scan your abdomen, your kidneys, just making sure that everything is good. It's a lot of testing, but you don't just do everything at once. You go step by step by step. And if you sort of like fail out at any of those points, or you're not a candidate, then you stop the testing, and they have to go look for someone else.
Now, if you don't mind me sharing about the blood draws, Matt is one of the toughest guys you could ever meet. I've seen him get punched in the face, blood all over the place, and laugh like he was getting tickled. But Superman does have his kryptonite, and I will say that that's something where you really stepped up and had to show courage and overcome all of that lab work. Every time you were getting blood draws, you looked like you were about to pass out, and you were shaking. You definitely had a tough time with that process, but you were so brave, and I'm so proud of you. And I couldn't believe that they took that much blood from you. They're vampires.
Felt like a lot, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it felt like a lot. You're right. I know a lot of people have problems with that too, and I certainly do. I am not fond of I don't mind needles, but if you're going to take my blood, I feel like you're taking my life force, and I would like to keep that.
Yes. Now, you've mentioned a bunch of the physical tests. What sort of mental and emotional testing did they do?
Yeah, that's an interesting component to it. As you sit and think about it, a transplant, you're moving an organ from one person to another, which is an amazing miracle that they can even do that. But I didn't realize that there was going to be quite so much mental and emotional testing. So you meet repeatedly with a social worker, with a person who's dedicated to work with you, and that social worker. I don't remember how many times we met, but you're filling out forms, you're talking with them, they're sort of interviewing you. It's almost like, hey, are we going to let this person donate? Are they going to be okay after? And some people do feel after transplant planning, some people feel feelings of loss. A lot of people have actually reported feelings like you get a lot of attention prior to the transplant, but then afterwards, people report feeling like they've been discarded, like we got what we need from you.
Wow.
And that's something that I don't remember feeling that. But that's something that they screen for, and they try to make sure that you're ready for the changes that are going to happen in your life. Because even if people say there's nothing that's going to change, there are at least a few things that change for everybody. So you need to be ready for that, and whether you're donating to a stranger or, which is amazing. And I know of folks who have done that, and it boggles my mind. Or if you're donating to a family member, either way, there's an emotional and mental component to it.
Wow. Can you tell us what made you finally decide to donate or volunteer?
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, it's my sister, and when I was 4 years old, I prayed for a little sister, and my parents came eventually and a little later and told me that my prayers were being answered and I was going to have a little sister. And I thought, boy, I really ought to try to keep her around, huh? Um, yeah. So yeah, people talk about like the kidney donation thing, and it just doesn't. She's family, and I feel so blessed to have been in a position where we didn't have to have her on the list and wait for months or years hoping that we could find a kidney, and having her on dialysis, because people who go on dialysis first, the outlook is not quite as good as people who get a kidney right off the bat. And the blessing that I turned out to be a candidate was fantastic. But now my sister, my niece and nephew are going to be able to be raised by their mom, and like nothing else you can do can replace that fact. Just thankful for that.
One more example of why I call you Superman. Can you share with us what you did right before the donation? Were there some things that you tried to do ahead of time?
Well, yeah, there were definitely a few things. We went on a trip to Singapore. There, we didn't know. You go through this process and you're talking to the doctors and the coordinator, and they're telling you what your recovery is going to look like, and you read online, and everybody's story is different. So you don't know. So we said, let's try to do some things. So we went away. We went to Singapore and Thailand and Hawaii, tried to do some fun things. And that was kind of a trip of a lifetime. And then I was able to go and spend a week up on a mountain training with a Kung Fu master, which was a week that I will never forget. It was absolutely amazing. So those are some things. Try to squeeze in a few extra fun things before we went and took the leap into kidney donation.
And weren't you also doing a lot to focus on your health too? Not just get some trips in that maybe you don't know when you could possibly go on again. So you want to take that opportunity. But what were the things you were doing health and fitness wise to get ready?
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Anytime you're going to have a surgery, whatever kind of surgery it is, the better health you're in, the better shape and the easier your recovery, the better your body will recover. So I was really trying to kick it into extra high gear, eating super clean, working out constantly trying to just get every system in my body into as close to perfect shape as I possibly could. I wanted to ramp up as high as possible so that whatever decline there was, I'd be further up and cut off as much of that decline as possible and just recover easier.
Yes, I remember that vividly. It was like watching the Rocky Balboa training montage. You really kicked everything into high gear. It was very inspirational. I will say that you taking care of your body was not just a big blessing to yourself, but also it's a big reason why you were able to help save your sister. That was incredible. I mean, if you had not taken such good care, then you wouldn't have been able to go through with the surgery, right?
Yeah, exactly. There are a lot of factors that immediately disqualify you from doing a surgery like that. So everything from any variation of diabetes. The sugar thing is a big one. So diabetes and insulin resistance and anything like that, for most people, is immediate a no go. And there's a whole list of other health issues. So if you're in really good shape, you're a lot more likely to make all the cuts. Now, certain things obviously are just matches. You have to be a match on a series of different tests that occur. But otherwise, there's things that it doesn't matter. If you have type 2 diabetes, you're probably not going to make that. So if I had not been in decent shape, I'd have not been able to help her.
And I'm sure a weight limit. And you mentioned the testing with the blood. Can you share about the story with your blood type? I could see the light bulb go off.
Yeah, it was amusing. We always thought I was at one blood type, and I can't remember, B positive maybe.
I thought it was A. You thought you were A positive. I'm B positive.
That's yes, yeah, A positive, and they came back after testing and said, "Oh, you're O positive. You're a universal donor." And I was like, "No, I'm not. I'm A positive." And but no, we're sure. We just tested. You're O positive. I'm like, oh, my parents have been telling me that I was A positive for years.
Well, if you weren't going to have the right blood type, to find out you were O positive, a universal blood donor is the best scenario right there.
Thank goodness. Exactly. That worked out.
In terms of when the surgery happened, how did that come about? Is this something where they schedule it, or do you have a say at all when it happens?
You know, that's something I'm glad you asked that. It's really surprised us. As soon as we found out that she was going to need a transplant, different family members, my parents, me obviously, and some other folks started asking, well, okay, can we start getting tested? And the answer was no. So I didn't even realize that was a possibility. And come to find out, even a very healthy kidney it's not going to last forever. And what they want to do is balance the length of a donated kidney with how well the person who needs that donation is doing. So until they get to a certain critical level, they are definitely not going to do a donation, but they don't even, they won't put you on the list until a certain point, and they won't start testing potential donors either. So once Erica got to that point, we were able to start going in and get tested. And once I made all the tests and they said, okay, you're going to be a valid candidate, we can do this with you. At that point, we actually did have some flexibility. So we were sitting on it for a while. We wanted to see, what would happen. How was she feeling? And of course, she was feeling terrible because her kidneys were just not filtering the way they were supposed to. But we had this flexibility and there was like a critical point. And what we decided after doing a lot of research and talking and a lot of prayer was we don't want her to get to the critical point where she needs to go on dialysis while we get the donation scheduled. And for us, it felt like life was sort of on hold. I don't know what's going on 3 months from now. I might be having surgery, or 6 months from now, or 7, or whatever. So at some point, we just made the decision, okay, in order to not let her get on dialysis, not risk that, and to take control of our life, let's set a date. This is when we're going to do it. I was able to work with work because we knew exactly when it was going to happen, set things up with them, and set things up with the family. And we were able to make a plan that way by not waiting till the last minute.
Can you share with us some of the risks the doctors mentioned to you? You mentioned the sugar tolerance earlier, but stuff about kidney compensation, impact sports, hydration, that kind of thing. Can you share some of those?
Yeah. So when you donate a kidney, what happens is that over the following 3 to 6 months or so, the one kidney that's left will grow somewhat to help to compensate. And that somewhat is roughly 60 to 80% of your original total filtration capacity. So if the kidney really does a great job, then you may have 80% of what you had before. If it doesn't compensate as well, it may be 60%. But either way, you can survive just fine with just one kidney. But that's because of that compensation. So that's one thing. You don't know how much it's going to compensate. The other things are you have to be more aware of the water intake, because with one kidney and whatever filtration capacity it has, you need more water to filter, to help your kidney with that filter process. The more water you take in, the better it filters. Also, the better if you're drinking protein or eating protein, you need more water the more protein you take in. And more protein means more work on the kidney as well. So you really need to kind of watch the protein intake, increase the water intake. You can't have ibuprofen, naproxen, any kind of NSAIDs. So that includes aspirin as well. That's been something that was really interesting to me. So I have had a couple of other injuries here and there, and I'll go in and say, oh yeah, I've got this, my elbow is hurting, and they'll look at it and they'll say, oh yeah, you've got some inflammation there. We're gonna give you a prescription anti-inflammatory. Oh no, you're not. Sorry, doc. I donated a kidney. Oh, okay. We can't do that. We'll find something else for you then. And so the doctors are sort of trying to figure out what's the next step, because for most inflammation, the first step is let's hit it with an anti-inflammatory. Mm-hmm. So that's something that's been definitely interesting as well, and that's pretty significant as well, because that's even something if you're hiking the Appalachian Trail, which I've done a number of times, and something starts hurting, if you twist your foot or something, Tylenol is not going to have the same effect, because you can take Tylenol, mm-hmm. It just does not have the same effect as some of those anti-inflammatories. You also can't take creatine.
That's exactly what I was going to ask.
Yeah, there's certain things you just can't take because it puts too much load on the single kidney. So there's definitely some things that you have to be aware of going into that, and how that's going to just change.
Mm-hmm. And with you doing martial arts, that's a dangerous sport, very physical. What does that mean for somebody who donated a kidney or who has one kidney? Some people are born with one.
That's true. And, I've tried to turn it a little bit. I say you can only do a kidney punch on me on one side. So you might be surprised. I may not react as much as you expect me to. But they do want you to be extra careful of that, because if that one kidney gets injured, then you don't have the backup. So kidney punches are just a thing. Falling and there's a lot of stuff, any kind of impact sport or contact, you have a risk of that sort of issue. Fortunately, I will say it's not as much of a risk for the donor as it is for the person who is receiving the new kidney. Interestingly enough, your kidneys sit on either side of your spine, basically. And when you get a kidney, it sits lower and in the middle, kind of like behind your stomach. And one of my friend's kids actually had a kidney donation, and during, I think it was soccer, she got kicked in the stomach, and there was concern about that injuring her kidney. So you can still do things, but you have to be aware, and there are pads that you can wear for martial arts, but it's just something to keep in mind.
Definitely. Now, can you take us to the day of the donation? What are some things that you remember that stand out? What was that day like for you?
It was scary. It was definitely scary. There's, I feel no shame in saying that was, I was very anxious about that whole process. One thing that I was really thankful for was that you were there supporting me from beginning to end. I would not be surprised if there was a picture of you hovering behind the doctor in the operating room. But being able to be in the room with my sister beforehand, the pre-op was done together. And that was a real blessing because that meant that we could all be there. Mom and Dad were there. Erica and I were talking about it beforehand. And we have some sweet pictures of fist bumping each other before we go off to the OR. That made it a lot easier.
Was there something special you wore to the hospital that day?
Oh, yeah. Yes. So Superman gear from head to toe. We had a little Crypto, the little dog that does the Superman theme, and the Superman blanket. Really it makes it fun and gives it the doctors and nurses. They when they walk in and they see something like that, they get a big smile on their faces, and you know that you also know that you're going to get some good treatment too because they have fun with it.
That's true.
Yeah.
I think that's part of why we started doing that. Make it as fun as possible for you, but also the people taking care of you. We started doing that for your ankle surgery. I remember when you had just come out of surgery and they put you in recovery, and the doctor came back and he actually called me Lois Lane and said, Superman is out of surgery because you're wearing so much Superman stuff. You did the same thing for your shoulder surgery. And then also you had your tonsils taken out, and that was a painful surgery, very painful for an adult. And please excuse the drinking sound. You probably hear our super dog Brownie right now drinking water. He heard you talk about being hydrated and he got inspired. One thing I also wanted to add with the day of the surgery, it was a very emotional day. I know for me to see my husband there about to go through a major surgery was really tough. And my sister-in-law, who I love dearly, also going through so much. And that was the first really big trial that I had experienced after my twin sister, Jess, went to heaven. And I remember thinking, I don't know how I'm going to handle this because I've always had her right by my side through everything. And I remember praying so hard on the days leading up and that day. And I remember being filled with this sense of peace and calm. And I remember thinking, okay, I'm going to be Eher strong. I called my twin sister Eher. It was a made-up word that means sister that we had been calling each other since we were little kids. And I just kept saying to myself, be Eher strong. Or we live by the saying, WWJD, what would Jesus do? And we definitely follow that. But I also feel like I learned so much from my twin sister, as you did too, Matt, and you've shared with us today. And I would say WWJD can also be what would Jess do? And I remember feeling like I felt her strength, because the Bible talks about how our loved ones in heaven are cheering for us. So I really felt like she was cheering from afar. But my heart also went out to your parents. I know that it was very painful for them to see both of their babies in the hospital going through a major surgery.
Yeah, I think that was definitely a significant thing. Mom and dad both. I can't imagine looking at your only two kids both going into surgery together at the same time. That's got to be scary. And I know that they were there, encouraging us, but I know that they were also anxious about it themselves.
Well, as we're about to embark on having our own human baby, we've had fur babies and reptile babies, but our first baby girl coming in just a few weeks, it definitely stirs a lot of emotion in me and a lot of empathy towards your parents. And I definitely admire how they handled that with such grace and faith.
Amen to that. I was very thankful for all the support from you and from them, and it definitely, I think it helped keep us, me and Erica both, calm, having you guys there and supporting us.
Can you share with us the first thing that you remember after the surgery? I know it must be a blur, but what's one of the first things you can remember?
It is a blur for sure. One of the few things I remember is Erica texting me. We started texting, and actually, I looked it up, and the first thing that we said was, "I hurt," and the other one saying, "Yeah, same." But not long after that was Erica texting me that she didn't feel nauseous for the first time in months, and I was like, "Wow, I didn't expect it to make that much of a difference that quickly." Mm-hmm. And then the doctor coming in and saying, I think it was actually, it wasn't the doctor that told me directly, but that the doctor had said it was like putting a jet engine in a Cessna. They had the biggest kidney, and putting that in her really did the job. It felt good. I was dizzy and confused and hurting, but it felt good to know that it was working already.
And I'd like to add that a really good friend of mine came, Jamie Klein, who had someone donate their kidney to her when she needed it several years prior. And Jamie came the day of the surgery and was there while I was in the waiting room waiting to hear what happened. And she was so sweet, super funny, caused shenanigans, a great distraction for me. And then she also just shared a wealth of wisdom on what to expect leading up to day of and the days that followed. So thank you, Jamie, for all that you did.
Yeah, it was definitely nice having somebody directly available to talk to. And she, I think, also talked to Erica some as well. That really helped to be able to ask questions.
Mm-hmm. I wanted to share the story about when you were in recovery, the days after the surgery. You were in a lot of pain, and they were supposed to be administering pain medicine, but we had a miscommunication, not on your part or mine, but there was a misunderstanding by the nurse. Can you share a little bit about what happened?
Yeah, so I came out, surgery was Thursday. I think by 4 p.m. I was kind of conscious. And the next day, there was some kind of confusion where the nurse was asking me about my previous history of pain medication. They were trying to figure out exactly what to get me on and what to keep me on, because of course you've just got a kidney out. Things are different, and it's the second day after having the surgery and with all the anesthesiologist. So I mentioned that when I had my shoulder surgery, I had taken Dilaudid. Well, he wrote that down as has been taking Dilaudid and is addicted to it, or some variation thereof, and would not give me medicine. It had been years since I had, or at least a year since I had been had that surgery, and even then, I only took it for like a week.
Yeah, that's it.
So I spent Friday, the beginning of Friday, in a great deal of pain until the doctor got in and found out. I know you guys were hunting for him and trying to get the doctor in to overrule this nurse, and the doctor was horrified. The doctor was basically like, "You just had a kidney out. Of course you need something strong. Like, come on." So he fixed that. The rest of the day I was actually able to get up and go see Erica in the other room. But wow, if you're going through anything like this, like it's helpful to have somebody there who can go hunt down the doctor for you if something goes wrong or weird.
And I was there to be your advocate. I believe everybody needs an advocate. You shouldn't have the patient having to handle that. You were speaking up, but I was also speaking up. He still wasn't understanding it correctly, and it took a lot of pushback before the doctor came and got things figured out. So it was definitely a lesson in that sometimes, even if they say no or they don't understand something, be persistent, get the care that you deserve, and make sure you're well taken care of.
Yeah, for sure. Be your own advocate, and if you can have people there with you to be your advocate as well, very helpful.
Mm-hmm. You were in the hospital for a few days, and then you got released. Can you tell us about the first few days at home and what that was like?
Yeah, I mean, even then, it's the first few days were surprisingly fatiguing. You go in, it's really interesting because as the person who's receiving a kidney, you go in feeling awful, and you come out feeling like you had surgery, but the other symptoms, like I said, she was not feeling nauseous. She was feeling a lot better. So you're on the upswing as the person who received the kidney. The person who gave it goes in feeling great and comes out feeling absolutely awful. So, those days, it was very difficult to get up and go to the bathroom because I was so tired. Beforehand, the day before, 2 or 3 days before, I was out jogging with no problem and lifting weights and all of that. And, when we came home by, I guess, Saturday evening, like 3 days, third day, I think, getting up to go to the bathroom, I had to pause part way. And the bathroom was no more than 25 feet away.
Mm-hmm.
So it was really interesting. The torso felt like my organs had all moved around, and I kept feeling like things were sloshing around in different positions. And I felt that for a long time. There were a lot of issues, and I definitely remember day 5 was a glorious day. That was the day where I got to post the Facebook message with a smiley face, about 20 poop emojis, and another smiley face. The struggle is real, especially after that an abdominal type surgery.
That was absolutely. That was hysterical. The reactions you got on Facebook, everybody was just stunned.
Yeah, that was pretty fantastic. I love that. And some of this stuff tells you the difference between having an extremity, doing surgery on an extremity like a shoulder or an ankle versus something in the torso. And that really informed a lot of what I did. It's different to, okay, my ankle hurts or I can't lean on my ankle. That stinks versus every movement. If I want to twist to the side, no twisting. You cannot, you can only get things in front of you. Getting up, if you think about standing up, your core tries to stabilize. If you, as you're walking, your core tries to stabilize. If you bend down to get something, your core is like, you suddenly are aware how much your core is engaged in everything you do. And it's, so not only are you fatigued, but you're limited, much more limited for a while on what you can do. And it's a little harder to work around.
Would you say that somebody who goes through a surgery like this could laugh, maybe even attend a comedy show just a week after?
I wouldn't have
Inside
before.
joke.
Well, but now I certainly would. After we did have a comedy show scheduled. It was a Christian comedian, Michael Jr. It was amazing, and Joe was definitely trying to say, look, I don't think we should do this, and it wasn't supposed to have been on that day. It had gotten rescheduled, and I said, no, we're going. We can do this. We can go out there. She was like, no. And we hadn't shared this before, but I said, oh, look, after your double mastectomy, you were insistent that we were going to go and watch the Orioles play in the playoffs. And we walked around covering you up to make sure nobody bumped into you. I can certainly go and sit down in a chair and watch Michael Jr. And we did. It brought a pillow, pressed it against my stomach every time I laughed. I think I was the only person in the room saying, please don't make me laugh anymore.
You may have been the only person who would laugh and then tear up shortly after.
I was definitely tearing up, that's for sure. It was a lot of fun, but ouch.
That's a great story. Can you tell us about working out, when you started working out? The surgery was in February. What month and did you start working out, and what were you doing to ease into it?
Yeah, so I definitely wanted to be careful with this because, again, being a torso incision and an organ being removed and all that, I really wanted to make sure I was doing exactly what the doctors said and make sure I followed their instructions, and I talked to them about everything that I did. So in April, we did two things. We signed up for a 4-month membership for Tai Chi, and we got an elliptical. And again, we signed it all off with the doctors, and I started working on the elliptical each day, something that would be gentle on the joints, but also a gentle way of walking and getting a little bit of movement. And then Tai Chi is a soft style martial art that I'd always wanted to do. It's, if you see movies or people where there's like people in the park slowly going through these martial arts looking movements, that's Tai Chi. It's like a moving meditation, but it's also a martial art. It's just often used as a balance exercise and a meditation exercise nowadays. And so those slow movements, I said, man, I could finally do that, and I could do this to begin with. And the doctors signed off on it, and I went in for my first class, and all we did was stand in one position, facing forward, doing a little bit of just twisting side to side real gently and a little bit of hand motion. And I hurt for days afterward. Days. I had been so immobile. I was really tight. My insides were all mixed up. I was still feeling that. And I feel like doing that Tai Chi got me moving, got my body moving, and got me prepped to do more later. But I was surprised at how such a gentle movement after having had that surgery hurt a lot to start.
When did you start lifting weights again?
So May 5th, that was the 12-week mark, and that was the day I started lifting. They said before then I couldn't lift more than 20 pounds. And I started lifting. I eased into it very carefully. So I was just trying to do low weights, do a few reps at a time, and just make sure that my body was holding up and that I had this sense of they did stuff to my insides, and so I wanted to be really careful about that. But I quickly noticed that I was feeling better, and I was able to slowly add more. So I was easily fatigued still, even at that point in May. And I couldn't stabilize as much because when I was trying to do like core activation, it was really painful and uncomfortable. Um, Even to the point where like I tried to do at one point a plank, and I remember thinking, I feel like there's seams coming apart. This is not good. So I stopped immediately and just put that on hold. Um, but interestingly enough, just to provide a little bit of context, May is also, I think it was the end of May, is when we went to Tennessee. We did a trip to CrossFit Mayhem. And doing that trip, we did a workout called the 333. It's 3,000-meter row, 300 double unders, which I only did single unders, I think, and a 3-mile run. And it was all movements I could do by the time we got there. And that was just 3 months after kidney donation. So I was able in that month also to start slowly doing a little bit of light jujitsu with some people that I trusted, but not like in a regular school. It was only with a few specific folks, and I just kept working that up and testing things gently. So okay, how does my stomach feel? Okay, I feel like I can do planks again. I feel like I can do other things, and so I moved from static movements like a light deadlift or air squats or again a light bench, and then eventually progressed into the dynamic movements like doing a clean, doing a squat clean, doing those Olympic movements that were more dynamic and required more force. I didn't want to risk pushing really hard and doing a lot of a forceful movement and having something tear, where if you're going through a slower movement and a lower range of motion, you can be a little bit more aware when you're reaching your limits. But I will say by August, we went to the CrossFit Games and we were actually able to participate in workouts, do training, and we did training classes with some conjugate folks. Really got into it. I went and looked up before this a video or a picture of doing we did double unders and a ski erg and squat cleans. It was 115, so it wasn't real heavy for me. But I was doing squat cleans at the games at the end of July, early August.
That was incredible. And let me say that we worked out at the games, meaning we weren't competing at the CrossFit Games. They had workouts for the fans. Although, remember when we got a text message, somebody was checking in on me. I was away from work, and one of my clients was asking what I was up to. And I responded to her and said, "Oh, Matt and I, we're having a blast. We're at the CrossFit Games in Madison, Wisconsin." And she said, "Good luck." I laughed so hard because they have the 40 fittest people in the entire world competing at those games. It was also very flattering that she thought we were competing there.
Yeah, that was hilarious. Good luck. Yeah, okay.
I was amazed you were lifting and doing those workouts. I feel like what has impressed me throughout your whole process was your courage, unbelievable, strong faith, but also you were so patient and careful and methodical, but you weren't overly cautious to the point where it was an unnecessarily slow recovery. And your recovery may appear to look longer than some because most people are not asking their bodies to do the things that you do. You are doing high-level CrossFit workouts, martial arts. We would do obstacle course races. We did the Savage Race that September, which was like 7 to 9 miles of running interspersed with 25 to 30 very difficult obstacles. And then was that the year that you also did your first section of the Appalachian Trail with Sean?
Yeah, that was a week after the Savage Race in September. We did our first 3-day section. So we were out there carrying, at the time, because I didn't know better, it was almost a 50-pound pack. And yeah, I mean, months after donating a kidney. So I feel like it was a slow ramp. It was like the first few months, I really, really noticed the fatigue and the difference. And like I said earlier, your kidney adjusts over the first 3 to 6 months. So even in November, I had a little note that said, my energy is still a little bit different then, but it was a noticeable change after that first 3 months or so. And it's a balance. It's a very tough balance. You have to be very careful about it and guided by the doctors. But walking that path of how do we maintain as much health as possible? How do we get back as quickly and as soon as possible, and continue and keep growing from there? And at the same time, how do we make sure that we're not jumping in to the deep end a little too soon and risk anything? Like I said, the worry about feeling like I could feel seams pulling was a pretty big clue. I needed to back off at that moment.
For sure.
But by November, I was back doing Israeli combats again with the folks, and getting hit and rolling and all of that.
Amazing. How is life different after donating a kidney? What are some things that you noticed that are different?
The biggest difference, there's a few things. Obviously, I mentioned earlier, can't take NSAIDs, and that changes how doctors interact with you and what you end up having to take. Definitely, have been trying to be more aware of my fluid intake, get more water. Dehydration becomes more of an issue, and so I want to be on top of that. Watching the protein intake too. If I want to try to trim down, I may not go. What I used to do would be more of a high protein diet. So now I'm leaning a little bit more in favor of like a keto with more healthy fats, and just balancing the protein that way.
Mm-hmm.
But those are all minor things. I think the two biggest things I've noticed are, one, my energy's a little bit lower at the end of the day. So I used to be able to go until 2 or 3 a.m. and then wake up the next morning and get to work and just boom, go right to it. And now I feel like around midnight, I start to get tired, and I need to get some sleep. And it's hit or miss. Some days I go to a 1 or whatever, but more frequently than not, I don't have that late night boundless energy that I feel like I used to. But getting up going to sleep at a reasonable time is not a bad thing. I think that's been a net benefit in a lot of ways. And the other thing, oddly enough, I'm just going to put it out there. I still can't tell when I have to pee. Yeah, it's weird. Ever since the surgery, for some reason, I feel like I have to pee more frequently, and I don't always know how much is in there. Don't know why, just there it is.
It's interesting in the Miller house now, with me being 9 months pregnant and Matt saying he doesn't know exactly when he has to go after that surgery. Definitely more of a sensitive bladder. So we definitely have to use the restroom a lot more often. Driving long distances has become very interesting.
That is very true. Very, very true. But I have to say, I'm just going to put this out there too. I did a lot before, and our path of learning more and more has continued, and refining our ways of programming workouts and what we do, learning new techniques. And before the kidney surgery, I was not doing handstands. I was not doing a lot of toes to bar. There's different things that I wasn't doing then. I wasn't doing double unders, in fact. And since the surgery, after building up carefully, I have been able to do more things, like handstands and working in handstand presses, and we're one of these days soon, handstand walks, double unders, going to Hawaii to do the ultimate Hawaiian trail run, and out there running the mountains. And these are things that I might have wondered if I'd be able to do it before. And the answer after working back to it is, yeah, definitely.
You are definitely unstoppable, and you have proven over and over again the power of resurrection, definitely, by God's grace, of course. But your hard work and determination are impressive.
And the right people in your corner.
Oh,
like you.
He's so syrupy sweet. Thank you. We help each other. We're a team. Teamwork makes the dream work.
That's right.
We're about to wrap this up, but I wanted to say just a couple more things. Can you share a little bit of how your relationship with God maybe has changed through this process?
Yeah. One of the biggest things is that I feel like when we go through difficult things, we have the choice to either turn away from God or lean into Him. And the more you lean into Him, the more you find that He will be there for you and He will support you. And I feel like, and He'll put people in place to help you as well. And this is the sort of thing that I keep seeing that as we go through life, and then we go through these different hurdles. We keep leaning into God, and He keeps helping us through. And it's not always necessarily in the ways that we expect or that we have in our brains, but as you continue to rely on Him, you get closer to Him, and it becomes easier. So I feel like that's made a big difference to me spiritually. That and we've also been able, you and I, to become closer through that relying on God.
Amen. And how has this process brought you closer to your sister?
Well, I feel like we've always been pretty close, but it definitely is different. Now I'm like, okay, hey, I should check in on my kidney, see how it's doing, right? But I see her regularly. We talk a lot, and it's definitely it's shifted our relationship a little bit. Certainly, like I said, we always had a good relationship, I feel like, but it's shifted it a little bit, and nothing but closer, nothing but for the better.
Wonderful.
I will say too, it's one of those tests we were talking about earlier was that I had a what do you call it? A kidney stone in my left kidney, and when I found out that was the one being taken, now she has to pass my kidney stone.
Always the stinkery older brother, right?
That's right. I was able to get one in on her still.
Oh, that's great. Is there anything else you want to say, or anything you want to share to anyone who might be considering donating?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing is that this is a huge gift. If you're donating a kidney or another organ, like a liver is another one that can be donated, and just get in there and yeah, certainly you have to think about it seriously, search yourself, but you can get tested and start that process, and they'll work with you to make sure that you are ready. But it's a huge gift to give to somebody, and if you're somebody who is for whom fitness is important, don't worry, you can do stuff. You can get back out there and keep doing things after donating a kidney. You just gotta be determined, and if you can, put some people in your corner to help you with that process. But it's very doable, and you can be back and even better than before.
Amen. And for those of you who would like to read an article that Matt wrote about the donation process, you can access his article on our website at www.livefit.net. And they can, what's the title of the article? If they just write kidney, they should find it, right?
Yeah, if you search for kidney, you should find it. It goes into detail and has a lot of pictures. It's called Kidney Donation, What's It Like? A 1-year review.
It's an excellent article. Highly recommend it. If you or someone you know is going through this process, please check that out. And then if they wanted to contact you, if someone had questions, they could find a way to contact you through the website.
Yep. There's a number of ways through the site, through the contact forms. So yeah, there's a few methods there.
Awesome. Well, Matt, Superman, thank you so much for taking so much time out of your day. We can't thank you enough. Really grateful for your story. You are such an inspiration, and I am beyond blessed to call you my husband and better half. And I know that this episode will bless countless people. So thank you. And for all of you listeners out there, have a great night and God bless.